Was I supposed to go first?
Yes. Brad gave you the template. You didn't see the template? You're saying Ben Dudley.
Well, that's what happens when you put Portland Timber co-chaplains Ben Dudley and Troy Reedy on the same podcast. Hello, everyone. This is Rev Brad, and today on From the Touchline, Ben and Troy joined me in a special phone interview. With Portland winning the MLS's back tournament last week, I wanted to try and get these guys on the phone right away and talk a little bit more about the team, the tourney, and what the rest of the season might look like for the Timbers. And there are a few special moments, including a special fishing story and a prayer in Tajik. So go get your plaid shirt, a hard hat, and an axe, because we're going to start chopping away after this.
He's found the space, and he's found the back of the net.
Just a little off foot, thinking he's going to go far post. Not strong enough with his right hand.
Whips that one in. Far post, almost made amends, and they have. He has the hat-trick. The second in his career. The third of the night. The hat-trick hero.
Talked about you're not going to be able to sustain that kind of pressure.
To the corner. Goes towards the near post. And you're the angle, and what a goal! What a goal!
Troy and Ben, welcome to the podcast today. Ben, you made me feel so guilty a couple weeks ago. I figured we needed to have you back on as soon as possible. And with the Timbers winning the MLS's back tournament, what better excuse? So welcome, guys, today.
Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks. Hey, can you repeat what you just said? Brad. What was that last thing you said about the Timbers something? What was that part? Can you say that again?
Well, yeah, it cut out on my end as well.
We're going to get to the Timbers winning the MLS's back tournament.
Yes.
I know.
That was it.
You guys are so proud about that. I'm proud for you. I'm happy for you. I think there's some debate around the league whether it's a legitimate tournament. We'll talk about that a little bit later, though. So, I'm glad for you guys. And as you know, I love your crew that you guys serve, and have had the opportunity to pray for them before. And there's some neat people that you get to work with in the Portland organization. But today I want to welcome first time to the pod, Troy Reedy. Troy, you're co-chaplain with Ben, and Troy, unlike Ben, you grew up in the Pacific Northwest. And so you've got a little bit bigger stake to claim there, growing up in Washington, wasn't it?
Yep. Spokane, Washington.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about growing up and where you grew up and just kind of how you got into soccer and where you are today.
Well, I was born in Spokane, and back in the days when MLS was non-existent, actually, and from an early age, I mean, I was kind of crazed soccer boy, so I can tell you way too many stories that you wouldn't want to hear, but I mean, my mom recounts me having about 30 different soccer balls in my twin-sized bed every night that I went to sleep. And I was the kid that in kindergarten had a training booklet and regiment, waking up before going to kindergarten and putting myself through drills. So I remember her in the back window of our house in her bathrobe, just looking out the window and kind of shaking her head like, who is this kid? But that was a big part of my upbringing, was just, there's this internal drive and love for the game that eventually led me to, playing in the semi-pro, league that Spokane had at the time, the Spokane Shadow, PDL team throughout high school, and then University of Washington, and then eventually you'll have to edit this part out, but I was drafted by the Seattle Sounders. Actually, you don't have to edit it out, because I said no and went to Norway instead, and then came back and joined the Timbers. So I gave him the talk to the hand kind of gesture.
So you have to explain this. Spokane, that's Sounders territory. Did you grow up being a Timbers fan, even though you were in Spokane? I mean, what did that look like to go play for a rival, to play really for the enemy, to go play for the Timbers?
Well, you'll know better than I. Was it 95 that the league began? 95, 96? 95.
Yeah, 96 was MLS.
96.
And the A-League, I forget, it was called the A-League at the time.
It was, yeah.
And Portland and Seattle were both part of that.
That's right. So, yeah, honestly, growing up, they're just, I would have been 16 years old already by that time. So, it was watching games, but not really caring. At the University of Washington, several of my teammates went into eventually the A-League before there was the transition. But yeah, there wasn't any deep sense of rivalry, at least in my experience. Although obviously it dates way further back, but
and the Sounders actually drafted you, right? And you said no.
This is how far things have come. I was drafted by the Sounders after my senior year, and I don't know where the draft even happened or how it happened. I just know I was told by someone later to look on some website, and apparently I had been quote unquote drafted. But I think that sort of meant it was a glorified, like, hey, we really want you to probably come try out and earn a spot on the team.
And make $500 a month.
Oh yeah. If you could land a big contract. Yeah.
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 So you turned down Sounders for Norway. Talk about going to Norway and how did you get connected into Norway and getting over there?
Well, we both at that time, my wife and I were married after my senior season at the University of Washington, and we've just sensed a heart to serve in and amongst the Muslim world. And there was I had a Norwegian teammate, which was kind of the inroads on the soccer side, but there was also a peace and reconciliation work happening in Norway between Jews, Jordanians, and Palestinians. And so we simultaneously went to Norway to kind of get our feet wet with that, explore, is this something that would, be a good fit ministry wise? And so while it was an amazing work that was happening there, it wasn't necessarily exactly what we were feeling like was our giftings. And then on the soccer side, though, there were several of the clubs interested. It was just we could never get a work permit to stick. And so that's when actually when we came home and different parties were working on the work permit was when I trialed with the Timbers. And
wow, that's what a story to have there. And just Troy, you do hold, and I think you know this, but you hold a distinction amongst all Soccer Chaplains United chaplains of playing football at the highest levels. I mean, not only playing for Portland and trying to get on in Norway, but you played internationally also in Tajikistan for, let me try and pronounce this team, Vikesh Kurgantepe. Is that, did I even get close?
Well, I was primed up to say, wow, that was really good, but no, that was quite actually Kurgantepe. You were spot on. Although recently the city has been renamed to Bokhtar, and Vach is the name of the team. But yeah, those are sounds we typically don't make in English. So I'll give you the due grace.
Do you ever have Ben try and pronounce some of those Tajik words that and just laugh at him too?
He's fluent, Brad. The guy is unbelievable. He must be a linguist or something.
Wow. I feel bad. Sorry. Maybe I should have pronounced it. Maybe I should have just turned it over to you and said, hey, could you pronounce the name of the team? So pronounce it once again for us in the correct, even though they've gone through the name change. What was the team that you played for?
The Bakhsh in Kurgantepe, Tajikistan.
Okay. Wow. And so
that sounds exactly like how I would have said it, Troy.
I know. Yeah, exactly.
You two are ridiculous. Troy, though, you not only played for the team, but you ended up playing a huge part of like developing out soccer in Tajikistan, right? Can you share a little bit about what that looked like and what you were able to do? And
yeah, I don't know about a huge part in developing, but certainly there was some really exciting inroads that were opening. We launched to Tajikistan. So I played with the Timbers 2006, 7, 8. And during that time, we were in preparations for what we sensed at the time to plant our family, which was myself, my wife, and our 7-month-old, in Tajikistan for the next 10 to 15 years. And so we landed there in 2009, and it was really clear to me within that first year that, you know, even in playing in the local villages and things in a small city, and obviously as a foreigner, you're just, you know, you're such an anomaly as is, but there were from the get-go some invites. Hey, you should come play for the city professional team. But it was just really clear that it wasn't time to try to do that. But about a year passed, and that's when things did feel like the right timing. And, you know, it was, you know, you talk about just football, music, some of these things as world languages. And I just, one of the most powerful moments of our time in Tajikistan was after the first year of, you know, just the expected challenges of new life in a new culture. Sometimes there's water, sometimes there's electricity. You don't know where to go. You don't know how to say anything. You don't know how to do anything. There was all of that was just the constant, you know, daily grind of learning a new language and these sort of things. And I just remember at one point when I finally was in my first kind of training session with this team, where all of that had been the consistent, can't do this, don't know how to do that. You know, the second of stepping on the field and just this kind of feeling of relief of like, but I know how to do this. And, sure. And immediately, you know, where maybe there were people as I was in the marketplace, you know, trying to stumble through words and, you know, they lose their patience or wonder, why aren't you fluent? You've been here for 9 months already. Being on a team with 30 other peers and by way of being able to do something with the soccer ball, all of a sudden I had 30 like friends that wanted to, you know, help me through language and wanted to show me, you know, how to do things culturally appropriately and these sort of things. So, so that's a side trail, but a really powerful moment. And then opened, you know, the way to play on the team for about a year and a half. And before I had kind of what was the onset of some pain that was eventually the reason we had to leave Tajikistan. But once I was no longer able to play, my language had progressed to the point where I could start coaching. And so that was a neat experience to then, you know, coach in a foreign land, in a foreign language. And then one of the players that was on the team was pretty high up within the football federation. And so doors just kept kind of opening in that. We started a goalkeeping kind of academy, which again was continued after I left. And so I had just very little to do in terms of beginning some of these things. And we got a grant from the Jordanian, president? He ended up applying to be FIFA's new president. And he had some outreach stuff for growing football for girls. And so we started some tournaments there, and then eventually I started into having a role with the national team, which was just before we had to leave. But really, yeah, I mean, lots of things that were opening, and the NGO organization that we were working with simultaneously was kind of being closed down, and so it was a unique and really strategic opportunity to have my visa through the Tajikistan Football Federation.
For sure. Yeah.
So yeah, lots of micro stories within all of those different, streams, but yeah, amazing to see again the way that, a game opened avenues for relationship and opportunities.
Yeah, I've shared that so many times with people, is that there's so many places in the world where I've been and been blessed to be, where I don't know the language, I don't know the culture, I don't have a friend for miles around,
right.
And I drop this sphere on the ground, called a football in the world, or a soccer ball, and all of a sudden things change, and there's a language spoken. It's an unspoken, it's a played language that builds and breaks down so many barriers and walls, and is really a powerful tool. So really cool to hear how those doors opened, and what an amazing story. I think, Troy, we're going to have you back on and get more into some of those micro stories, as you call it. But I don't want to leave Ben on the sidelines here. So how did you guys meet? Troy, you came back from Tajikistan back to the Portland area. How did you guys talk a little bit about that first meeting, getting to know each other, and how did your roles within serving the Portland Timbers as co-chaplains, how did that begin to emerge?
Well, Troy grew up with a mutual friend of ours, a guy named Ben Sand, who I got to know through nonprofit work in the city of Portland. And one day, Ben called me up and he said, "Hey, you got to meet my buddy Troy. He played for the Timbers and he's in Tajikistan, and you need to come over. He's in town. Let's get coffee." And so I was like, "That's awesome." So we went, and I remember reading an article the Timbers had posted on their website about Troy being over in Tajikistan doing soccer stuff. And so I was like excited to meet him. I'd only been working and serving as a chaplain for maybe a year and a half or 2 years at this point, whenever I got them. And so Troy was in town. We went and had coffee and just had a really great conversation. And then, Troy, do you think it was maybe a year later after that you guys moved back?
Yeah, probably a year to 2 years after that.
Okay. And then after that, Troy, I'll let you tell the story because it's kind of funny. I'd love to hear your side of it, and then I'll tell you what my side of it was. But when you came back and went to meet with Gavin, like that'd be pretty funny to hear.
You'll let me tell the fanciful. I don't know what the right word is, and then Ben will set the story. What is the word?
Fanciful, yeah, that's a good term.
The fanciful version, and then Ben can set the story.
Wow, word of the day. Word of the day.
No,
is that fanciful?
Just briefly, a quick side story. When during the times we came back twice in the 4 years that we were calling Tajikistan home, and Ben had mentioned an article that was published that the Timbers wrote about my work there. But credit to Portland and to Gavin, who was my coach during the seasons that I played with the team. They were so gracious whenever I came back, to come certainly watch games and see the development of the club, but also to send me back with different jerseys and equipment for not only the pro team, but also all of the kind of the development teams within our club in Bach. And but you have to understand, there's only 2 flights into Tajikistan each week at that point. and they'll charge you an arm and a leg for every single bag that you bring. And so while I was super thankful for all that the Timbers were giving me, I was like, oh, how am I going to get all of this stuff in? And so on one of the ways back, I had just come back, not Jenny. And so I'm like, the only way to swing this is to literally wear 35 pairs of shorts, 35 shirts, and then bring a garbage bag, after I get through security, take it all off, put it in the garbage bag, bring it onto the plane. And so, it's Portland to New York to Riga, Latvia, there to Turkey, then Turkey to Tajikistan, so it's multiple stops. And at one point I was in Latvia, and I was just, I put everything back on, and I got through security, and I'm sweating, I've got all this stuff on. I look like, just this massive marshmallow. And so beeline to the bathroom. I'm in a stall, and instead of just taking one by one off, I was so hot that I reached behind my back to pull them all off. And I got stuck somehow, like in the midst of, all these shirts. And so I'm struggling in the stall in Latvia, thinking I'm going to suffocate and die from wearing all this gear and getting caught in a bathroom stall. So anyways, again,
see the headline, headline there.
Yes. Yeah.
American suffocates in soccer gear in Latvia stall.
That's the headline right there. But yeah, my Tajik was good enough by the time I got back that, oh man, the players were just rolling when I told them what I had to do to bring these, shirts and jerseys and things.
I knew you were going to tell that story, and I had to put myself on mute because I started laughing out loud. Like, anytime I get sad in life, I just think about you with the jerseys on track. It's just so good. So good.
Yeah. Troy, I can guarantee.
Who thinks about that? Who comes up with that idea in the first place? Like, oh, I got an idea. I'll wear it all.
You know me well enough, Ben, to know I'll save a dime anywhere I go. So that was probably the key motivator.
And I wonder if there was a Southwest Airlines rep that saw you at some point and created a commercial for their own airline with putting on that much clothing to save $1 on baggage fees.
That's right. So back to the point. When I had met Ben a few years earlier, I was just so encouraged, having been a player and desiring to see my teammates and those that I was interacting with witness, hopefully, Jesus on display through my life. And so, then launching to go to Tajikistan and hearing from our mutual friend that here's this guy that has stepped in and is loving on and continuing to serve the club and meeting with players and praying. I think I remember even hearing, Ben being aware that I'd been on the team and launched, hearing that he was praying for me. It was just such an honor to sit with him, meet him, hear the ongoing work. And so when I came back, Ben was doing everything that he could in terms of the accessibility that he had through the club. But, to some extent at that point, he was just an outsider. Gavin or others didn't know him. And so it was, I think helpful for me having been a player under Gavin who knew I was a Jesus follower, but was, a great teammate and representative of the club, both on the field and in the community, to then also say, and just affirm the work that Ben had done and his reputation with the players, to then ask for some further official kind of inroads within the organization. And so it was a no-brainer I hope it was a no-brainer for Gavin to say, look, I trust you, and if you trust and what Ben has been doing, you guys are more than welcome. And I think year after year, there's just been further trust built, further opportunities that continue to surface. So that's my recollection. Ben, now you can set the story straight or refine what.
No, I mean, I just remember getting a call one day from you, and I was so excited to hear from you. And the background on what had been going on in my life is I was running this nonprofit called AC Portland. We were doing after-school soccer programming with U.S. Soccer Foundation and America Scores. And I had to step in and take this over, try to raise money. And I had a 2.5-year-old at the time, and I think a baby on the way. And my wife the second pregnancy was really hard. And so I was taking my 2.5-year-old with me to work every day. And it was just like, and then I was trying to do the chaplain stuff, and I was just feeling like overwhelmed, and I didn't know how I was going to hold it all together. And so I'd really been praying for like a teammate. I just felt like kind of isolated in Portland. Like I needed a teammate, and I wasn't sure what that meant at the time. But then I got a call from you out of the blue, and you're like, Ben, this is Troy Reedy. I think you remember meeting me. And I'm like, oh yeah, Troy, it's great to hear from you. And you're like, just wanted from the beginning, I hope this is okay. I took a chance. If this isn't what you want to do, it's okay. Like you were just like overly qualifying like what you were about to tell me from the beginning. Like, okay, just get ready. I got some news, but don't it's okay if you don't want to do this. And you're like, hey, I talked to Gavin, and he basically said if we partner to do the chaplain stuff, then we can have access to practice and to the games and those kind of things. And I just almost burst into tears. I was just like overwhelmed with joy. Not so much so that access was all of a sudden given, although that was something that Brad and I had been praying for and excited about, but just that I got a teammate, because I just had really felt like I was not going to be able to continue to do it all, and so it was just like instantly, yes, let's do it. Yes, so it was really cool to get that, have that moment, and all, and then, I think the thing that's been so great is just Troy and I think we both are in it for the right reasons. And so there's never been 1 ounce of conflict or jealousy or jockeying for who's the point person or whatever. Like we're both just like, we're in this together, and it's been beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. Ben, you kind of mentioned it. We had been praying about it way back when, and it's a huge value for me and for those of us at Soccer Chaplains United, just to realize and be part of a team that are providing care for the people that we get to serve. And I've seen it a lot of times in sports chaplaincy, even in healthcare and in military chaplaincy settings, where a solo chaplain kind of develops a bit of a messiah complex. They think they're all that, they're the end all be all. And so it really helps to work in tandem. And one of the things I love about you guys and the way you serve together is just the way that you serve one another, and no one's in front. No one's, now when it comes to fishing, right, there's some rights and some placement that we claim and call in that. But in terms of the chaplaincy, you guys serve each other, and I think that service is a great example to the athletes and the coaches and the staff members that you're an example to as well. So I'm curious, though. It's nice to say co-chaplain, and you've given us a little bit of a flavor, but how exactly does it work? Are you guys like Lone Ranger and Tonto, or Laurel and Hardy, or Bert and Ernie, or are you Frodo and Sam, or Thelma and Louise? Like, share with us a little bit about how you work together practically and what your partnership and co-chaplaincy looks like.
Troy does all the work, and I take all the credit. That's kind of how we try to do it. So.
Why don't you share, and I'll add on to anything you want, anything that you may have missed.
Sure. I don't know if, I don't think we're Thelma and Louise, but it's been a while since I've seen that movie. So I don't know exactly who to compare us to, but I think Troy does a really good job. He you know how he was talking about, he was the kid in kindergarten who got up and had like a workout regimen and was just like disciplined. And I've seen that with Troy in anything he does. So he's started to want to get better at the guitar, and he's like advanced quickly because he's put his mind to it. He wanted to learn, like, be better at singing. So he took voice lessons, and he's like practices in his car. And so everything he does, he just does with excellence. And so one of the things that's been really nice is he's very organized. And so Troy does a great job of keeping up with making sure we're reaching out consistently and scheduling things with the players and paying attention to their schedules. And so, and that's great because it allows me to, I trust that he's got it. Like he's going to keep us going. And so that's been really nice because that's probably not my strength. And then, when we are together, I think we sometimes will take turns with kind of who's leading the session. And a lot of it is just getting our athletes an opportunity to share and listen to what's going on in their lives. Like I mentioned and talked about on the last podcast, I think, Brad. But as far as just how we work together, I mean, I think if one of us is like on game days, you know, we both have families and we have young kids. And so we're just not able to make every single match. We could, but there's no reason to, because we can lean on each other. So that's also nice, just to be in communication with one another. And our Spanish speaking interpreter, Angel, just to be able to rely on each other and say, hey, I'm not going to be able to make it this week. Okay, I got it. I'll cover it. And we just take care of each other that way.
Yeah, I agree with everything he's saying. There's the practicalities that really are a gift. You know, I've got 3 fairly young boys. Ben's got young kids. And so, yeah, being able to sometimes just cover and share the load. We do most things together, but it is really helpful to feel like if I can't make it, the players are still being served and vice versa. And then there's I think just as is the case, with different individuals, there's different strengths and there's different ways that, Ben's background with something may resonate more with one player, whereas mine may resonate more. And just, it just brings an added diversity to the community and whatever group, that we have to serve on the year. I think it enriches the environment.
Yeah, it reminds me of some of the biblical partnerships that you hear about, maybe like a Paul and Barnabas and some of those others who, they kind of forge these new paths into a new world and work together. And, sure, had differences at times, but, I've even seen and experienced that myself when I've been out to be with you guys and spend time with you, and the fellowship between the two of you and your families is sweet to see. And those are things that are real gifts along the way. And it's been neat to see just even how, you guys, I remember a couple hotel visits where you guys brought your guitars and your music, and it created those special moments, those special memories, and it's exciting to see both kind of grow together and continue growing, serving the team. Now,
Can I interject really quick just before you take a tangent? As I was communicating, I wanted also, Brad, to just affirm you. I know so much of the work that you do is to be a resource, to be a sounding board, to pray with and for, those that are doing it on their own. And so, we still benefit from your role in our lives and ministry, but I think, Ben and I are able in many ways to do that for one another. And I'm thankful for what you contribute to us, even though we have that, but certainly to the many chaplains that you serve that you are able to do that for, that are, don't have people to bounce things off of and don't, so anyways, I just wanted to affirm you in that.
Oh. I appreciate that, Troy. And good timing, because I was just about to mention our fishing trip that happened the last time we were out. And so I'm just going to tell it from my perspective. But so Ben and Troy, myself, we all enjoy a little fly fishing. I think it's debatable who's better than who. But these guys take me out this beautiful river. I don't even remember. What was the name of the river, guys?
The Clackamas River. The Clackamas.
Okay. Beautiful spot. And we developed this little game, this little system. And we're like, there's going to be a trophy for the guy who catches the first fish. And then there's going to be a trophy for the guy who catches the most fish, and a trophy for the guy who catches the biggest fish. And we're going to, if you take two of the categories, like you're king fisherman. And so we're all trying to get out. We're all trying to get in the river quickly. And sure enough, Troy's out, grabs the first fish. And it is the smallest minnow I've ever seen.
I think the fly was larger than the fish itself.
It must have been. But to your credit, you caught the first fish. So here I am, unfamiliar territory, unfamiliar river, and I'm just like, these guys are going to put me to shame. I'm already down one of the three categories that I might be able to get into. And so we just keep working this stretch of river. And, sure enough, I'm like, okay, the flies that I use in Colorado are actually working here. Like that, it was good. And my number count started to go up a little bit, but I was nervous because I think Ben and I were starting to compete, and Troy already had that head start. So then Ben's like working this deep, deep pool, and I'm jealous. I'm a little jealous. And he's like, hey, come over here. I'll share, being all gentle. But sure enough, Ben lands this like king size fish. What was it, Ben? It must have been 18 or 20 inches, something like that, wasn't it? Or was it even
30, 40?
No, you're a liar. True fisherman.
There's a part I got to give credit. There's a part of the story that's got to be edited. So you were upstream, and Troy was working the deep part of the water and sees the big fish. He's like, man, this is great. But I think maybe his fly came off, or he was just being Troy and being like, hey, Ben, why don't you come over to this awesome fish hole that's like the best one in the whole state? And I'm like, cool, let me try. And I wasn't over there a minute before I land, like, Willie. I mean, it was like the biggest fish.
Yeah, it was a good fish.
It was a fish. It was a real fish. It was probably,
that's the thing,
16 to 18 inches. Yeah.
Yeah, but most of them are tiny, and so we have this on video, and yeah, there's very few like real fish in there. But when Ben's got it on and it's actually bending the pole and he's having to fight a little bit, I'm sitting there shouting, "That's a real fish! It's a real fish!
A real fish!"
Oh, yeah, and I thanks for the clarification, Ben, because I do remember there was an invitation to me to also come back to the pool, but being upstream, and I had climbed across like some huge amount of just tree and limber fall, and there's no way I was hiking back. I was like, I am not taking my line out of the water to go try. And then of course, Ben, you had that fish in so short of a time. So it felt good to me. I forget how many fish were that day, but I think it was 15 or 16, and I narrowly took the greatest number of fish.
Yes, you did.
So fairness to all of us, right? We'll have to go back out again and see who could be king fisherman. But that was.
Although you said there was a trophy, there was a trophy for each category. I haven't received my trophy. Have you been?
No, I am still waiting on that trophy.
They're still being custom made, guys. Being custom made.
We're here in Portland, we're just pulling in so many trophies. So I guess.
Oh my God.
We can go without the fishing.
What a good segue into Timbers winning MLS is back. Now, Troy, I don't know. Ben's probably shared this with you, but I remember Ben looking me in the eye. I think it was 2010 after we, of course, won our trophy. And Ben goes, Brad, I'm telling you, Portland will win a trophy within 5 years of coming into MLS. Nice. And he had made this bold prophetic prediction. And he said some other things too, like, in fact, we're going to win like 8 trophies in our first 10 years or something like that.
No.
You made some radical claim. I forget what it was. But to be fair, you guys won last week. You won MLS's back, which came with some hardware. It came with, $1 million prize and a Champions League spot. Is that right? And tell me about it. How did the team feel about winning that? I've heard a little scuttlebutt around the league from players especially who were like, this isn't a legit tourney because not every team participated. And I think really it's a little bit of sore loser. I don't think it's really, but tell me from your guys' perspective, from the players and the front office perspective, how did it feel for the Timbers winning sort of this COVID bubble tournament down in Orlando this year? Well,
I would say, yes, there's truth. Not every team was in the tournament, but really you're just saying minus 2 teams. And so, especially going into the tournament when that was at that point foreseeably and potentially the season that was going to take place, you can't tell me that not every team was going to, give it their all to win the tournament, instead of, this is some side thing. Let's save our legs for the real season. No, it was what was before them, and every team's going to, give it their best to win it. Now, is it the MLS championship? No, it's different. It's a tournament, but it's it'd be like saying in some ways that the World Cup isn't a valid representation or a valid trophy because it's only a month-long knockout, tournament. Sure. So I think, from my perspective, my opinion is, it's a meaningful trophy. It's a meaningful, effort that the players, staff, and all, those that are involved put in, and as everyone is hoping that this is the one and only time that an MLS's back tournament will take place, it's a trophy that nobody else is ever going to have. So that's kind of unique special. As well.
Pretty special. Yeah. Ben, from your perspective.
All I was going to add is that these players were away from their families for over a month and living in this bubble. That was not an idea. Like their needs were taken care of, but they're just sitting around all the time other than training. And so I think what made it feel so special, and I'm not one of the players, but I can just imagine is like to have to sacrifice and go through that weird bubble life to be able to come out at the end of that with the accomplishment of winning probably felt really great. And so from that perspective, I think it's pretty special. And I guarantee you that every player in the MLS, if they had could have raised that trophy, would feel the same way. And so, the tournament was totally a legit tournament, and it's a legit trophy, and we got it. And we're the only ones that'll ever have it, because I don't think there'll ever be another COVID Cup, Lord willing. Like, Lord help us if there is. So we're the champs, and you can't take that away from us.
For sure. Well, congratulations to you guys, and please pass on to the guys and the people that I know there. Congratulations for winning that, and it's great to. I don't know. Maybe for me, there's a little bit of that's a Soccer Chaplains United team. We just that they won. So there's a little bit of pride that can creep in a little bit. But I wanted to ask you guys too. MLS season resumes with Phase 1. So we're going to see about 6 games go on for teams as sort of the season kicks back up on Sunday. Or actually, I think it kicks up back for some teams on Friday. you guys face Seattle. Is that Portland's biggest rival club, or in your opinion, which MLS club is the biggest rival for the Timbers?
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah, without a doubt.
For sure.
Yeah.
And is that because Troy turned the Sounders down originally? I mean,
oh yeah, that's. I'm sure all of the analysts and writers would look back to that day and say that's when it all started.
Well, on the Chaplain side, we certainly would. But what makes the rivalry with Seattle as such? What creates that? Or can you guys share with us a little bit, give us a little bit of insight into why Seattle and Portland, the Sounders and Timbers, have that particular rivalry amongst themselves?
Well, you got proximity of location. They both were a part of the league back in the early 70s when it started, before MLS, and I can't ever remember the name of the league back then.
The A-League, yeah.
Way back when. I think it was NASL.
Yeah, NASL.
Yeah, but wasn't so NASL, and just had a rivalry, and there's some. There's all kinds of people who've written about the rivalry. And then I think when Portland came into the league, it was a fun way to stoke the rivalry. Merritt bought a billboard in Seattle, right, outside of the stadium, talking about the Timbers and just kind of, it's fun to have rivals in sports, and Seattle's just hands down ours. We like to talk about how Portland has fans and Seattle has customers. And I think a lot of that has to do with when we were in the USL, we were having 13 or 14,000 people attend our matches, and they were having 3,000 or 4,000 until they became an MLS team. And then the story that I heard was that they worked a deal and they sold their tickets in conjunction with the Seahawks ticket package, and a bunch of people showed up for the first match, and then all of a sudden everybody's talking about how they have 30 or 40,000 people at their matches. And we were already, having huge turnout before we became a major league team. And so, it's kind of some of the fun things that Portlanders like to talk about. But, on a professional level, as my job with the Positive Coaching Alliance, I have the honor and privilege to work with the Timbers and the Sounders. I get to work with the Sounders as well. And I can tell you they're first class organization, amazing people, and so but on the field it's a super fun rivalry to have.
Yeah, no, that's true. I've got a lot of friends and former Rapids guys that are part of this Sounders organization, and they are a class act. And but it's fun, I think, for the fans to have that kind of rivalry spirit. And well, you guys know that being chaplains in football, as long as you have. As chaplains, we often are in this place of almost neutrality. You guys mentioned being fans, and of course, I'm a fan of the Rapids as well. But in the neutral role that a chaplain can have, we provide somewhat of a stabilizing presence and force, because results don't always go the way a team wants it to, or work so hard toward. I know. For us, for the Rapids, we wanted to do so much better in the tournament, and we felt like we were on a great start to our season. So to have our 3 games was kind of tough and difficult. But, I'm curious for you guys, for me being around the Rapids for, 20 plus years, there seems to be these different moments when I notice that the Rapids go through either a slump or they have a bit of a winning streak. And sometimes I notice elsewhere in the league and other leagues as well, trends and patterns where maybe it's a particular team or a particular manager, but some teams come flying out of the gate. I remember Dallas for years. They would win their first 10 games. They'd go undefeated, and then they really struggled through the rest of the year. It seemed to be a pattern. Rapids, we've seen to have our own little pattern where we have a midsummer or late summer slump, but then maybe we go on, win a bunch of games and start to build up this momentum for the playoffs. So I'm curious for you guys in looking at Portland, maybe either as fan or chaplain, is there a typical rhythm that you've seen for Portland that maybe coming off this win from the tourney, are they gonna struggle a little bit getting back into like a regular season mode and being home now around family, having sort of the daily training? Maybe it's some of the turmoil going on in Portland right now. Are some of those things going to disrupt the rhythm and what Portland's achieved already, or what do you guys anticipate for the Timbers for the rest of the season?
Well, I don't think either Ben or I are necessarily experts on that, but I do. One of my jobs, I am a collegiate coach as well. So, in as much as I'm involved with the club from a service on the spiritual side of things, there's also a joy to grow in that profession and kind of analyze how the coaching staff are running sessions or viewing different stretches of the season. And so, Portland's been unique in the last few years as they've had this massive stadium renovation where the first, 12 games-ish of the last two seasons, they're on the road. And so, is it any wonder that, there's a slow start, so there's probably lots of factors that play into that.
Sure.
I think what my observation, of Gio as a coach is, early on, I was pretty shocked, but also impressed at how much tinkering he would do, both within the lineup in terms of personnel, but also in terms of the system, and part of what led them to the 2018 MLS final was they went for a stretch of that season with this kind of just unconventional Christmas tree, formation that led them to, a series of results, and then they were able to shift again. And that was evident as well within the tournament in knowing, they won in a variety of ways. Sometimes sitting in such a low block, sometimes, totally relying on the counter. Sometimes they did outpossess the opponent. And then in the final to have the two winning goals from set piece opportunities and your two center backs or the goal scorers, there's just a wide variety of ways that they were able to win. So, from a coaching standpoint, to me, it seems like he continues, the staff continues, the players continue to figure out for the season. They played more games now than any of the other teams. So, and then they head straight into a big rivalry match. So, it seems like they have a good pulse on for the next game at hand or the tournament they're in or the stretch of games. How do we play in the way that's going to give us the best chance to win? And you'd have to say they're doing a good job of finding that target.
Sure. Yeah. And I think for so many other clubs that, I don't think we've played a meaningful game now for a month almost after leaving the tourney before we face our rival, Salt Lake. And that's, how do you, of course, there's a professionalism to it, but at the end of the day, it's that flow and rhythm of training and games and other things that help build you up and get your sharpness and your, what's known as match fitness. Keeping those things is key. So it's going to be, that's another maybe side benefit to Portland doing so well and going so far in the tournament is they're going to maintain that game integrity that is going to probably propel them further on into the season. And I guess as a Rapids fan myself, I'm just kind of glad that those games didn't count toward the regular season. And I think we're still above you guys in terms of points, but we'll see how that all unfolds here this next weekend. So, well, Troy and Ben, thank you guys so much for taking the time today to come onto the podcast. And Troy, I wonder if you would just close us out in prayer, and unless Ben, you've got anything final you wanted to add. I do
have just one more thing to add, Brad. first 3 games of the tournament did count toward the standings. So just to clarify, we are above you in the table. We're at 3rd. You're at 7th.
Oh boy!
Just to make sure on the record, I want to keep you honest, Brad. I just want to make sure everybody was aware. That,
don't forget, Ben. I can edit this podcast. We can take this element out. I don't like to be seen as wrong. Oh, no, I'm just kidding. That's great. I'm happy for you. I guess what I was saying was I'm glad we're still fighting for a playoff spot. I think we're at 7 right now at the bottom, at the bottom of the playoff seeding. So, but congratulations to you guys. Oh my goodness. Well, Troy, would you mind praying for us? And I'd love it too if you wouldn't mind praying in English and Tajik. Is that correct to say it? Tajik? Is that the language?
That was much closer. Tajik.
Okay. Tajik. Okay. I'm going to learn. I'm going to grow in this. But
you are.
Troy,
you're there.
Troy, would you pray kind of for the remainder of the MLS season as it kicks off in Market this weekend? And would you also continue to pray for sort of the turmoil and unrest that's going on in the city of Portland with demonstrations and such, and pray too for the Timbers and anything else God puts on your heart and mind?
Yeah, I'll pray for some of those things with in English as I can articulate better. But yeah, I'll start in Tajik and then flow into English.
Thank you.
Khudaban tu bezurg hasti va sazavori jalo. Minat dorastem ki az dasti tu salamat medihi. Zinda medihi va mehrubon medihi. Biguzor ki hamai Portland Timbers va hamai Bozingaron dar MLS Isa almaseh mebinand. Zindai pur dar dastitu dar nome Isa amasi. Amen. And so, Father, we thank you for your great grace, your great love, which extends to every nation, tribe, and tongue, and to every people, to every player, to every club, to every staff member, and that you long to reveal the glory of your Son, Jesus. I ask that you would give grace and wisdom and favor to all of the chaplains that oversee the clubs, that you'd give increasing inroads into lives, into hearts, into opportunities to serve and to be a blessing. And we give you thanks for the safety and the opportunity for these players to play, for the bubble that worked really well, and now asks for your protection and your continued favor to enable these guys to continue on with the season. Lord, we pray for our city and for the continuing of unrest and both the grief that lingers in terms of oppression and also the anger that has surfaced. And we ask, Lord, even sometimes not knowing what it will look like and how it all fleshes itself out, but we ask for your kingdom to come and your will to be done here on earth as it is in heaven. Thank you for the joy of being called your son. And may we continue to walk alongside of others as they see you. Pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
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 Well, this is Rev Brad,
Ben Dudley,
and Troy Reedy,
coming to you from the Touchline.